Women in war, the role of women during the Peloponnesian conflict. The Peloponnesian War between Athens and Sparta lasted for nearly 3 decades, a grueling conflict that reshaped Greek society in countless ways. While men fought on the front lines and commanded the ships, the role of women in this war was equally significant, though often unrecognized. In both Athens and Sparta, women took on essential roles as they maintained households, supported economies, and even influenced morale and political decisions. The war altered the fabric of daily life, challenging traditional gender roles and providing opportunities, as well as hardships, for women throughout Greece. Part 1. The Women of Sparta: Strength and Resilience. In Sparta, women were raised with a level of physical and mental rigor that set them apart from other Greek city-states. Spartan women were expected to be strong, resilient, and independent, qualities that allowed them to support the state's intense militaristic society. While Spartan men were often away training or fighting, Spartan women managed the land, oversaw the household, and maintained Spartan society. Unlike Athenian women, Spartan women were granted considerable freedom and autonomy. They could own property, manage estates, and participate in physical training. This independence was not a sign of gender equality in the modern sense, but it reflected the unique structure of Spartan society, where the need for a powerful military demanded that women play an active role in supporting the state's stability and prosperity. During the Peloponnesian War, Spartan women were essential in maintaining morale and supporting the families of soldiers, ensuring that their husbands and sons could focus on defending Sparta without worrying about the home front. Furthermore, Spartan women were known to encourage their men to fight courageously. The famous phrase, "Come back with your shield," or "on it," exemplified the expectations placed on Spartan warriors by their wives and mothers. In a society that valued honor above all, Spartan women upheld the values of bravery and resilience, reinforcing the militaristic culture that was crucial to Sparta's success. Part 2. Athenian Women: Keeping the Economy Afloat. In contrast to the women of Sparta, Athenian women were traditionally limited to the domestic sphere, with little access to public life or property ownership. However, the Peloponnesian War created new challenges and demands that pushed Athenian women into unfamiliar roles. As the war dragged on and resources became scarce, women began to take on responsibilities outside of the home, contributing to the economy in ways they hadn't before. The protracted nature of the conflict meant that Athenian men were frequently away from their homes, either on military campaigns or managing naval operations. Women, therefore, were left to manage farms, oversee trades, and handle household finances. While these tasks were often seen as temporary, the role of women in supporting the city's economy grew essential as the war drained Athens' resources. Women in poorer households, in particular, engaged in weaving, spinning, and selling goods at the marketplace to make ends meet. Additionally, Athenian women played an indirect but critical role in maintaining the city's social structure. With the influx of soldiers, citizens, and refugees into Athens during times of siege, households became centers of support for displaced families and injured soldiers. Women managed these increasingly complex households, helping to feed, clothe, and care for extended family members and other citizens who sought shelter. Part 3. Religious Roles and Rituals: Women as Guardians of Faith. Religion played a central role in Greek society, and during the Peloponnesian War, religious rituals became more significant as people sought divine protection and guidance. Women, who were barred from most political and civic duties, were often active in religious life. Athenian women participated in various religious ceremonies and were responsible for preparing offerings, conducting prayers, and organizing festivals, activities believed to bring favor to the city. The Thesmophoria, a festival dedicated to Demeter, the goddess of agriculture, was one of the few events in which women were given primary control. During this time, women would pray for the fertility of the land and the well-being of their families, an important ritual as the war disrupted agricultural production and food supplies. Women also held prominent roles in other religious rites, such as the Panathenaea in Athens, which celebrated Athena, the city's patron goddess. These religious activities gave women a sense of agency and importance, allowing them to contribute to the city's welfare through their devotion. In Sparta, women also engaged in religious practices, though less formalized than in Athens. Spartan women often participated in dances and rites that were intended to prepare them for their roles as mothers of warriors. These practices reinforced the ideals of strength and resilience within Spartan society and underscored the value of women in fostering the next generation of soldiers. Part 4. The women left behind: loss and hardship. As the war continued, many Greek women faced the harsh reality of loss. With so many men fighting and dying, women were left to care for families alone, often without the financial and emotional support that their husbands, brothers, and sons had once provided. Widows, in particular, faced significant hardship, as they were left without property rights and were often dependent on male relatives for support. For Athenian women, the loss of a husband or father could mean a dramatic shift in status. Without the protection of a male guardian, many women were vulnerable to poverty and exploitation. This vulnerability highlighted the inequalities faced by women in Athenian society, who lacked the legal rights to inherit property or engage fully in the economic life of the city. The emotional toll was also profound. In both Athens and Sparta, women were expected to endure the losses of loved ones stoically, but the cumulative grief of war weighed heavily on the community. Stories and plays written during this period often reflected the sorrow and hardship faced by families, particularly women, who bore the emotional burden of war. The tragedies of playwrights like Euripides depicted female characters grappling with the consequences of war, loss, and survival, revealing the impact of the Peloponnesian War on women's lives. Part 5. Political influence and resistance. Though women in both Athens and Sparta were generally excluded from direct political power, the war created situations where women's influence became evident in more subtle ways. In Athens, influential women, often through connections with powerful men, could shape political decisions and influence opinions within the household. Aspasia, the partner of Pericles, is a famous example of a woman who wielded considerable influence over Athenian politics, philosophy, and culture. Her salon became a gathering place for intellectuals, where discussions on democracy and warfare may have been indirectly shaped by her insights. In times of crisis, Athenian women, though unable to vote or hold office, found ways to express dissent or resistance. For example, in Aristophanes' comedy Lysistrata, women of Athens and Sparta joined forces to end the war by withholding intimacy from their husbands until peace is declared. While a fictional account, Lysistrata underscores the idea that women were aware of the futility and cost of the war and were willing to challenge traditional roles to advocate for peace. In Sparta, the power of women manifested through their control over property and their influence within the family. Since Spartan men spent most of their lives in military service, Spartan women managed estates and wielded significant control over household resources. This authority provided them with a level of social power that was unusual in Greek society and allowed them to subtly influence the direction of Spartan society and support for the war. Part 6. The lasting impact of the war on Greek women. The Peloponnesian War left a lasting impact on the lives of Greek women. The demands of war had forced women to take on new roles and responsibilities, challenging traditional gender norms and expanding the scope of women's participation in society. In Athens, while women returned to more restricted roles after the war, their contributions during the conflict had demonstrated their resilience and capability, subtly shifting perceptions of women's potential. For Sparta, the war reinforced the unique social status of Spartan women. Their freedom and responsibilities, tied to their roles as managers of households and mothers of warriors, became even more essential as the demands of empire stretched Spartan resources. Over time, Spartan women's influence in society would grow, and their control over property would give them a significant voice in the city-state's affairs. The stories, plays, and records of the Peloponnesian War left behind a legacy that captured both the visible and invisible roles women played in a time of intense hardship. The impact of the war highlighted the critical roles women could play in supporting their societies and coping with the emotional and practical burdens of prolonged conflict. Though they often remained in the shadows of history, the women of Athens and Sparta proved themselves as integral to the endurance and resilience of their cities. Conclusion: women's resilience and legacy in the Peloponnesian War. The role of women during the Peloponnesian War illustrates the resilience, adaptability, and strength that women brought to both Athens and Sparta. While men fought on the front lines, women sustained the cities behind the scenes, taking on economic, religious, and social responsibilities. The war may have reshaped Greek society in countless ways, but the contributions of women ensured the survival and continuity of Greek culture even during the darkest times. In the aftermath of the war, the experiences of these women became part of the cultural legacy of Greece, inspiring